welcome back for another episode of Fox Sports Lab NRL. Round 6 is well and truly upon us. As always, Josh Morris joins me. Josh, how are you going this week?
Good, and it was a wet and wild start to the rounds last week. I mean, that Newcastle game was ridiculous, but we saw some good football. The weather cleared up, so we're looking forward to round 6 already. It's flown by.
Yeah, the radar is looking pretty good ahead of round 6. And of course, our game that we've identified to kick off round 6 is the Knights taking on the Roosters. The Knights are the short odds here, $1.55. Roosters, $2.55. You'd have to think that's because no James Tedesco for this one as well.
Yeah, no James Tedesco, no Sam Walker, both out with HIA, and obviously Dom Young has the suspension for his high shot. The Knights, they had a good win, albeit in some really testing conditions. You can't really take too much out of those games, but they were good enough to get the job done in the wet. For the Knights, they've won 8 of their last 9 at home, but the Roosters have a really good record against the Knights. They're good value there, and they've won 12 of their last 14. I just think those losses to the Roosters will mount up, and I think the Knights will be too strong here. Bradman Best, he's been pretty quiet. He's had a pretty quiet start to the season. I think this game he's going to step up against a quality opposition, and I think he'll be on the try scorers list, and the Knights getting the win as well.
Knights going up in that one. Up next, of course, we've got a Queensland rivalry. Broncos taking on the Dolphins. Wayne Bennett. Now, the Broncos are $1.34. Dolphins, $3.25. A lot of injuries for the Dolphins after round 5, but Wayne Bennett will certainly have his men up for this one.
Yeah, he will. It's another Queensland derby. And I think if you can remember last year in this corresponding match, Katoni Staggs scoring a try and proclaiming that this was their house. I think that the Dolphins' injuries are pretty big. Herbie Farnworth and Felice Kafusi, they lose a lot of experience and attack. The big in for the Broncos, though, is Reece Walsh coming back early from that injury. Obviously, they lose Adam Reynolds. Jock Madden comes in for him. They have Tessie New in the centres up against Selwyn Cobbo. So I'm looking forward to that battle. But I think the outside backs for the Broncos will run riot in this one. And that brings me to my big call of the week. I think we'll see try scorers from the Broncos. All 1 to 5 will get over the try line. And I'm tipping that the Broncos will get a 13+ win in this one as well.
That is a big call. All 5 to cross for a try this weekend. The Broncos take on the Dolphins. Josh Morris is with me. Up next, we've got the Rabbitohs taking on the Sharks. So much talk about this one. $2.96 for the Rabbitohs. $1.41 Sharks favourites in this one. A huge game in I suppose, for Jason Demetriou for the club. And they're saying that he has 80 minutes left to prove that he can be head coach for the Rabbitohs. There's so much weighing up on this one.
Yeah, there is a lot riding on this game for South, and obviously Jason Demetriou, there has been talk that this could potentially be his last week, and they're doing it without Latrell, who's been suspended for 3 weeks. Damien Cook has been dropped. Jai Gray comes in and makes his debut. Now, I watched him play in the reserve grade. He's a lively customer, but he is quite short, so you can expect a few midfield bombs coming his way, and then he'll be put under a lot of pressure by the Sharkies. Britton Okora comes back into the Sharks side. For me, South are on life support. If they really respect and like their coach, they have to come out and get the job done. It's that simple. But I just can't see it against the Sharkies. I think they've been very good to start the season. They're fresh off a bye as well, so they'll be ready for this one. And yeah, I think we could potentially see Jason Demetriou coach his last game for South Sydney this weekend.
Yeah, so much riding on this one. How do you think the Rabbitohs squad will go as well without the like of Latrell Mitchell, without his experience? We know that there's been so much talk about him to start the season, but in terms of the camaraderie for this, 1 to 17 in such a high crucial game, what does his absence mean for them?
Yeah, well, they've really got to band together. I mean, if you look at their spine at the start of the season to right now, 3 of the 4 have been replaced. How is that going to work? You need your spine to have those combinations and to build that trust. And you're throwing in 2 new blokes in potentially, a do or die game this weekend. So we'll have to wait to see how it pans out. But yeah, I just see all those changes in the spine really affecting their attack. And I think the Sharks will be too good defensively and with the ball in hand.
Up next, we've got the Tigers, $1.74, taking on the Dragons, $2.08. For me, it's a flip of a coin in this one. These two teams have showed glimpses of brilliance, and then they've had some really somewhat not so good games or some shockers out there as well. Where do you sort of lie in this game?
Yeah, it is a flip of the coin, but yeah, I think the Dragons they were pretty poor last week, but as I said, with the conditions that they played in, it's hard to get a gauge on that.
Yeah.
It was horrendous, and some of the tries they let in were, balls on the ground, sliding into the balls, and them taking deflections and ending up in Newcastle's hands. For me, the Tigers, they fought back against the Dolphins, but they weren't really in it. I think the Dolphins' kicking game was far superior. Their kick chase was far superior. If I'm Benji Marshall, I'm looking at that as an aspect that they can improve, definitely. The Dragons, they've won 3 of their past 4 at Campbelltown, and Tigers fans, it's not good listening here. They've lost their last 8 at Campbelltown Stadium. So I actually like the Dragons in this one. Jacob Little plays his 100th game against his former club. I'm expecting him to have a big game, and I'm expecting the Dragons to get a win in this one.
Dragons to upset the West Tigers at home. Let's go through the rest of round 6. Got Storm taking on the Bulldogs. Where do you like, or where does your money lay for this one?
Yeah, look, the Dogs had a good win over the Roosters last week. The Storm, they just got across the line against the Broncos in what was probably the most entertaining match of the year. Bailey Hayward makes his debut. I remember Bailey as a young fella supporting the Dogs. Now he becomes a Bulldogs first grader, so congratulations to him. But I just think the Storm, they're going to be defensively on this week. Craig Bellamy is defensive-minded. They leaked too many points last week, and I like the way Munster's come back into the team, the way their attack looks. So I think the Storm 13+ in this one.
13+ for the Storm. Next up, we've got the Warriors taking on the Seagulls. These two teams, I think, sort of on par. The Seagulls have had a brilliant start to the season, a big win over the Premiers last weekend. The Warriors, too, got up in round 5. What do you like about this matchup?
Yeah, both had dominant wins. I mean, Manly had a dominant win over the Premiers off the back of DCE becoming the most capped Seagull. And then the Warriors came across the ditch and took on the Bunnies, and they were very dominant. For the Warriors, I like the inclusion of Kurt Capewell and Dylan Watini-Zelezniak. They're big ins. Ruben Garrick is out. And as I said, it's always a tough place to go over and win. So I've got the Warriors in this one. I think it'll be a close game, though.
Eels taking on the Cowboys. The Eels put on a dismal performance against the Raiders last weekend. Can they bounce back in a big way? The halves, obviously, no Mitch Moses is proving to be a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah, it is. And, they didn't look good against the Raiders. The Cowboys, they had a good win over the Titans. Their defence was a bit off at stages, so I think they'll fix that. But no Sevo. Bailey Simonson comes in, Cartwright's back, and they have another halves pairing of Arcee and Brown. So there's just too much chopping and changing in the halves for me. I like the way the Cowboys have been attacking. I think the loss of Moses is too big, so I'm taking the Cowboys in that one.
And lastly, to round out the season, 6 o'clock on Sunday night, the Raiders taking on the Titans at GIO Stadium. I'll be down there doing sideline. What's your tip for this one?
Well, I just hope it's not too windy and that Arctic breeze doesn't come, because it can be certainly a very cold place for you, Eloise, down in Canberra. But I like the Raiders. I like what they did last week. They dismantled the Eels, and I think they're going to be too strong for the Titans in this one. And it's not good for the Titans still yet to get a win. So I think it'll be a hard ask to go down there and beat the Raiders at home.
Is there any way of desperation creeping in for the Titans to get on top of the Raiders in this one, just because they are in such need of a win?
Yeah, sometimes that can be a good thing. And for the Raiders, obviously coming off a big win, they might take the Titans easy. And if they do, well, then we can see what happens in the NRL. If you're off just a little bit, the other team can capitalise on that. But I think Ricky will have them ready to go, and I think the Raiders will win big in that one.
All right, looking forward to round 6. Josh Morris, as always, thanks so much for your time. We'll chat next week for round 7.
Thanks, Eloise. Have a good week.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.